Welcome, everyone, to the DSWA Executive Forum. I am so excited for you to be part of this forum today and to listen to this recording. Keep it, go through it several times, share it with your team, because we know that so many of you are wanting to come in to Asia or expand in Asia or grow Asia. This is your opportunity to hear from the best, an expert in this field. So today we're going to be talking about Asia made easier, and how many of us would like to have an easier life and simplify what we do, not come back and do the cleanup. So listen carefully, get your paper out, take notes, and I'm about to introduce you to my dear friend, Russ Wood. I want to give you a little background on Russ so you get the idea of how effective he is at what he does, how long he's been doing this, and why he is an expert in this field. So Russ has an MBA from Thunderbird, which is one of the top international MBA schools, a bachelor's degree in Asia Studies at BYU. He's lived and worked in Greater China for over 9 years. And he's based in China full-time doing consulting with companies who want to enter Asia or want to improve their performance in Asia. And so both are good. He's fluent in Mandarin Chinese, including reading and writing. Oh gosh, that is not an easy language to learn, so I give you credit for that, Russ. And over 27 years of direct selling industry experience on the corporate side. Russ has direct experience in some of these areas here. All of them: sales and marketing, field relationship management, operations, logistics, IT systems, product development, customer service management, as well as international expansion. He's opened 27 countries for direct selling companies in Asia. So Russ, we want to thank you for being here with us and say hi to everybody.
My pleasure. Thank you, Nicki, and it is great to be with you all, and look forward to being able to talk about my favorite subject, Asia.
You want to talk for a minute Mandarin so we can show them how good you are?
我会讲中文的，欢迎大家来，然后我真的很兴奋的看你们在亚洲发展你们的生意。
He really does know it. I'm telling you, he's good at it. So if you're a listener who is with a company considering building a direct selling corporation in Asia, or you're wanting to grow that company that you're already there, you're on the right webinar right now. This is the time. So Russ, I'd like to ask you a few questions about your experience doing business in Asia. So let's just get started. So what has caused you to focus so extensively in your career in Asia?
Great question. Early on in my life, before actually college, I had an experience in Taiwan living and working there. And I just fell in love with the language, the people, the culture. And that's what drove me to start to study the language and the culture. And I've just had a life pursuit of being involved with Asia.
Oh, that's great. So what is the business environment like right now? What is the environment in Asia, particularly in certain countries?
You know, Asia right now is growing and developing. Obviously, they, like every other country, have challenges they're trying to deal with. Governments are trying to find ways to better provide opportunities, employment, and better lifestyle for their constituents. And specifically, like in Greater China, 1.4 billion people, that the government is really focused on making their lifestyle better, giving them opportunities to grow and progress. Japan, Korea, Indonesia, Philippines, all of them are really focused on reaching out, developing their citizens. And I think now more than any time in the past, the opportunity is great for direct selling companies to come to Asia and give their distributors or their independent business owners an opportunity to grow with them.
Very good. So how should a company prepare to enter the Asian market?
You know, Asia is very diverse. So you have on the southern end, you have Indonesia, Malaysia. They have certain political, religious, historical, and cultural differences that are different from, say, Greater China, that includes China, Taiwan, Hong Kong. And then the Philippines obviously is much different than Greater China. Again, It's these background differences. It's how they're brought up, and the thing that they all have in common that's great for us as direct sellers is they all want great products. They want great service. They want opportunity. And this is really the benefit of direct selling to these countries here. And I believe more and more countries are looking for ways that people can do home enterprises and small startups. And this is, you read the news and find that there's more and more of a gap between the haves and the have-nots. And governments are seeing ways to allow companies to come in and flourish. And as we flourish, so do many people on the ground.
Wow, that's a great way to put it. And I love the people in all the Asian countries that I visited, and they enjoy their having an opportunity, and they're grateful. People are grateful. I guess that's one of the things I love most about my work in that part of the world. So when opening Asia, which country should a company launch in first?
That is probably the billion-dollar question. And I have companies ask me about this from time to time, and I think it's really impossible to say. Every company is different, and so I think what the best way to do is look at what you currently have. Where are your strengths? Where are your weaknesses? Your current clientele. Can we leverage the current clientele you have in other markets that would help lead you into a specific country? So some companies may have more of a Chinese base in the United States. Well, then we would talk about starting, say, in Hong Kong or Taiwan. Some may not have much of a Chinese base, but maybe they have more Malaysian or maybe Filipino. And those are the kinds of things that we would need to talk about up front and analyze, and then basically set a strategy for how you leverage on what you already have.
Good point. One of the things I love about living in Hawaii is we have all those cultures here. And so this is a great place to meet people who can help you build in those other countries. So I love it here. So what have you learned from other company successes or failures that could support a company entering Asia?
Wow, Nicki, that's a great question. And while I don't want to scare anyone, there's nothing to really be afraid of in Asia, but you need to be prepared. You need to have a strong stomach, and you need to be willing to invest in certain areas that will help your company to adapt to the environment here. Culturally, you need to adapt. Language, you need to adapt. Your corporate culture and your corporate mentality. It used to be back in the 90s, when companies first started coming here to Asia, it was basically put your sign up and the Asians would flock to the international companies. Now, not so much. Now, Asian consumers are extremely educated. They do their homework. They want the best products, and they can communicate so quickly over here that you need to be prepared from how your products look to how you present them to compliance. And basically, you need to look the part when you come here. And those are the kinds of things that we can discuss strategically based on where you're at as a company. And then we can obviously develop some things that can help you make those adaptations.
You had some great words in there. Compliance. I think that's sort of important in today's climate. And the other thing
Nobody wants to go to jail. Nobody looks good in orange, right?
That's that. And the other thing is to really understand the people and to know many companies from America think when they go to another country, they can run it just the same way they did in America. And it's such a different culture with different people. And I know we're going to address that a little bit, but I feel like having those discussions in advance to know how you're going to enter and how you're going to be respectful of the people and their ways of doing things is a big factor. So thanks for sharing some of that. So
let me just give you one example. So, it's little things like, for example, I was doing some work in Indonesia recently, and one of the videos that a company had a piggy bank, and it showed that basically you want to put money in your piggy bank. Well, in Indonesia, they don't, for the most part, they don't eat pork. And so in a video like that, you probably would remove the piggy bank and you would put in a different image that would reflect your knowledge and understanding of the culture there.
Mm, very good point. I appreciate that one. Boy, that would be after you made the film and nobody told you during the processing would not be good. So
Right.
perhaps there are companies who are struggling to grow in Asia right now that are with us today. What would you recommend to be that they would want to shift to have this work for them?
Yeah, that's a great question. And Nikki, a lot of times it's not necessarily that your product doesn't match. A lot of time it's just that you're trying to do the same things in Asia that you do in, say, a North American market. And in certain cases, that doesn't connect with your consumer base. And so what I always recommend is that you step back, you try and lose all of those preconceived conceptions, and you try and look at it completely from a different angle to say, how can we connect with consumers in Asia? What do we need to be doing differently? What terms in terms of our corporate culture, in terms of how we approach the consumer, that we can change to make a better connection? How is your customer service? If your customer service is not good, let me tell you, these people demand great customer service. Here in Asia, you can order a meal and it can be delivered to your home in 15 to 30 minutes. It's
Wow.
that fast. You can order products online. And because these people are so hardworking, they work 7 days a week, you can get products delivered that day, the same day, to your home. That's the kind of service that people in Asia are expecting, and those companies that can adapt to that, they become the most successful.
So you're saying they don't want to wait for 3 weeks for their products to arrive. That will not work.
That wouldn't be on my list of to-dos here.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's it. So, we've heard that there are huge cultural differences between the West and Asia. How do you suggest a company can better meet the challenges of understanding and complying with all those cultural differences?
I talk to a lot of people, and I know that, let me just use the US, and I hope I don't offend anyone in the US, but in the US for many years, we've just been so focused on our own self and on our own culture that we don't even realize that we need to be more open and more understanding, and constantly asking questions about, what does this mean in this culture? What are the language differences? What are the cultural differences? How do people see their families? How do people see their governments? How do they, what traditions, what holidays? How can we be more sensitive to people in those other areas? Let me give you an example. One company that I was working with, they are centralized in terms of their communications, their social communications, Facebook, etc. And in suggesting, hey, you need to be more well-rounded, you need to open up more, you need to be able to communicate to consumers across Asia. And their response was, we do. And so I went in and actually looked up their Facebook page, and over the last 90 days, there was one communication in Chinese that basically was a Happy New Year communication. And it basically
Well,
said,
good Chinese New Year.
Happy Chinese New Year, but Chinese New Year is a time when families get together. It's almost like reverse the role. Think about, you're working for a Chinese company that is going into the USA, and they say in English, the only post they have in English that says Merry Christmas, or maybe they even say it, Happy Christmas.
Mhm.
And Christmas is a time when people get together as families, they exchange gifts, Merry Christmas. That's not communicating with your constituents. And so you have to really take a more focused approach on communicating in language. People don't buy what they can't read and understand.
Mm, very good point. So, what are the key areas of investment that a company should make in order to be successful in Asia?
Um, there are, let's talk about language. So investing resources in getting translations, effective translations that communicate your message in not just the words, but the real meaning, and communicating a meaning that resonates with your customers. Investing in the right people in your company,
Mm.
people who have an understanding of other cultures and who have a respect and a love and an admiration of Asia. If you don't have that in your company, you're going to miss completely.
Yeah.
Find find a culture that, or create a culture that that really enjoys or rewards this welcoming and understanding of other cultures. Invest in the right technologies. There's technologies that are coming out all the time. In the most recent years, you talk about QQ, Alibaba has come out, WeChat. There's other localized line, for example, in some of these markets. Um, there's this technology that is so useful and so helpful to communication that if you invest in that as part of your infrastructure, you will be able to reach a lot more people a lot faster. So
Good,
those are just a few of the areas that you can be aware of.
good point. So how does the company create a strategy? We've talked a little bit about, launching, coming into the country and so on. How do they create that strategy to have a successful launch in Asia?
Great question. I always, when I'm doing this with companies, I always go back to their main, how much risk do you want to bear? Because obviously you step outside of your mother country, you have to absorb some risk and you have to be willing to take some risk. And then once we understand their risk profile, then we can determine a strategy on which markets, say, present a little more risk or a little less risk. Which markets are more expensive to enter versus other markets? Which countries are more welcoming to your products? So not every company is created equal. Not every product is going to be perceived the same. And so those are the kinds of things that we walk through and we develop a way to analyze and then come up with, hey, here be the target markets that you would go into. And this is what you can do starting in your home country and expand out to other Asian countries. Now, if you're already in Asia, you may not be doing as well. You may not be achieving your dreams. And so there's some investments that would need to be made that could correct that. And I've seen companies, we've worked together that have turned these things around just by doing a few things differently and not necessarily investing a ton, but investing it in the right areas.
Good point. So I'm just curious, what is it like living in China? And the other part of that, is China really what the Western press presents it to be?
You know, I love living in China, and I'll be here for the rest of my life. China is the fastest developing country on earth. Imagine it's almost a miracle that you can take 1.4 billion people and you can move them from 30 years ago being in complete poverty to now the massive infrastructure, the bullet trains that exceed 300 miles an hour, or 300 kilometers an hour. Um, the massive infrastructure that supports that many people, and to be here and watch this happen day to day is just phenomenal. Across from where I live, they are building probably about a half mile of new buildings. So the amount of investment that is going into this country is going to leapfrog other countries so fast. And the economy, while it's struggling, is still growing very quickly. And you see people going from rags to riches, not overnight, but as a part of the program. The government actually has a program where they're taking 10 million farmers from the farms and moving them into the cities and going from making maybe $1 a day to $10 a day or $20 a day. I mean, it sounds like so little, but imagine that you just got a 200% increase or a 1,000% increase in your income. And that on the lower level bumps up the next class, which bumps up the next class. And so as a whole, the whole economy is expanding. People are benefiting from this. And you know, a lot of times the Western press presents the communist government. Well, you know what? A government is a government. And as long as they are taking care of the people, and as long as they're making life better and giving them opportunities in a way that is free, which I got to tell you, China is a very free and open country. And this is why I love living here, because I learn something every day. The people here are wonderful. They're loving. They're the hardest working people. And I feel so blessed and grateful to be able to live here and witness this great time in this time period.
Oh, that's beautiful. So what changes, other than those you mentioned, are taking place in Asia that present these great opportunities for the Western companies to come your way?
Yeah, so the consumers over here, I mentioned this a little bit earlier, the consumers here are being, with the internet, with all the technology, they are becoming so much more aware. And as someone starts to make a little bit of money and they start to get to where they're more self-sufficient, they have more spending power, the first thing they start thinking about is how do they take care of themselves and their families better? How do they provide better opportunities? And so the products that meet those needs, and trust me, as a family develops, you can imagine there's children products, there's adult products, there's nutritional products, there's home products. All of those become of value to these people that now have the ability to spend money on.
Mm. So there is more disposable income than in the past for people.
Absolutely, absolutely. In each of these markets, you know, is it expanding as fast in some like the Philippines or Vietnam or what? No, it's not as fast there, but there is a rising middle class. And those, in a lot of cases, direct selling companies are really targeting that middle class. And when you consider the middle class here in Asia is probably close to 1 billion people, China's middle class is about 600 million people, twice the size of the USA. And then you consider you've got Indonesia that's 264 million people there. A lot of those are moving into the middle class. So again, I've just mentioned two of the countries. The opportunity is incredible here. And I would welcome anyone to come and at least research and give yourself an opportunity to explore.
That's great. So this is a little dangerous question because I don't know if I want to hear it, but how are Westerners perceived in Asia, and what can they do better to present a more positive image when doing business?
That is a great question. You know, a lot of times Westerners come here and they, I watch how they interact with people in Asia, and a lot of times there's this false sense of I hope I don't offend anybody here on this call, but there's this false sense of I'm better than you, and looking down on their constituents in Asia. Just because you may be taller doesn't mean that you're better. And what I would really recommend is really step back and try and meet everyone across the world, not just in Asia, but across the world as you do business. Meet them as your equals. Honor them and respect them. Respect their background, respect their historical or their religious background, their political background. Come in as a humble servant, willing to learn and to respect them on all levels. And then as you learn from them, obviously there will be relationships created, friendships created, and you will find them to be the most loyal, the most pleasant people to work with, and they can help you to take your company to new levels.
That's really important what you're saying there because, when I travel, people have a perception, right or wrong, that Americans think we know more and that we're a little bossy and a little loud, and they're shocked if you're not actually. And
Right.
and I really I want us just to be aware because America is a beautiful country, and I am proud to be an American. And I want people all over the world to see us as caring people who have a desire to serve others, who are wanting to learn to and want to support other countries in their quest. So we've got a lot of work in that area to do, but I think we can do it over time. So one last little question here. Given the changing political and economic landscape, what are the opportunities that are being presented to Western companies today?
The a lot of markets here are looking for investment.
Mm,
Okay. They a lot of places actually use American dollars, and they certainly respect the USA. In spite of whatever the press says, they respect the USA and its standing as one of the leading countries in the world. And as we look for opportunities to grow as direct selling companies, it's being able to go in and work with these government entities. Maybe it's a city or a county or even what we would refer to as a state government, looking for opportunities to work with them as a partner. Because really in Asia, governments here want and need to be your partner. They can provide protection, support, and knowing uh, how to kind of go through that maze is really important. And finding the right people who can help you to navigate those waters is critical. And then obviously there's some cultural things here that as you get in and you start navigating around, understanding what you can do and what you cannot do as you work with your different partners, both government and private companies, that presents some serious opportunities. And it's, those companies that are most successful almost have to break the model. And as you get creative, as you break the model, you will attract new people. You'll attract new pioneers into your country, into your company, that will then set you up for success long term.
that's beautiful. Any last minute things that you'd like to share that we just haven't covered in our discussion today?
Well, Asia is an incredible place, and I would love to see those of you that have interest. Feel free to reach out to me or reach out to Nicki. Nicki, thank you for the service you're providing globally. I think it's incredible that you've set this up and that we have the opportunity to communicate between all of us. And I would look forward to, if you have questions, don't hesitate to reach out to me, and I'll be happy to do what I can to support and provide some help to you as you come into Asia.
Well,
And
thank you
also,
so
I
much
want
for
to wish
your time.
you a very happy Chinese New Year that happens tomorrow night.
Ah, that's beautiful. Well, thank you everyone for joining us today. And Russ, thank you for your dedication to our profession and the years that you've committed to the direct selling world. And, I was thinking as we were talking here that, many people, because they've been in a corporation or in a business, think that they can open a direct selling company and they just do it the same way and it's going to work. And then they find out maybe it is a little different. Maybe I do need people that know this side of the business and this culture differently than I do. I think it's
Mhm.
sort of the same. If you're looking at going into another country, you've got to find people that totally understand what's going on in that country. What is the climate? What are the people like? What are the nuances? What will make us successful there? So I do hope that you'll reach out to Russ and ask for support. And he's a great guy. We've had several conversations over the last few months, and I've gotten to know him. And I think he's somebody that genuinely cares about the direct selling profession and cares about everybody that's entering that part of the world as well as in America. So thanks everyone for your time. We appreciate you and have a blessed, blessed day.
Thank you.
And I need to stop the recording.